Hey, and welcome to the Influential Nonprofit. I'm your host. I'm Maryanne. You know what I do. You know who I do it for. Today, I'm going to talk about storytelling, but not storytelling in the way that you might think I am, which is how we tell our organization story. I'm going to back that up a little bit because honestly, here's the thing. And just what I've learned from working in nonprofit, from just being alive for 58 years, working in nonprofit industry for 30, it's not the story that we're telling other people that really has the power. It's the story that we tell ourselves. The most important story we are telling is the story that our minds are telling us each and every minute, second of the day. That is the most important story because I guarantee you, if the story you're telling yourself and the story you're telling other people are not in alignment, it's not the same message, there will be conflict and there will be resistance, and people will not connect to that message. And what I've learned over the years as a coach, a guide, a marketing expert, I've helped maybe even thousands. I know hundreds and hundreds of nonprofit leaders grow their influence, become stronger leaders, get more of what they need more easily, navigate themselves more effectively, thereby navigating other people more effectively. And the core to that is the story that you tell yourself. Right? If you are saying, if you know, and what I learned is over the years is that people would say, okay, if we had a really good message, then we'd feel better. If we had a tagline, we'd feel better. If we had a brochure, we'd feel better. And so you're looking for these external things to change the inner narrative, but it's actually the opposite. We change the inner narrative to serve us more effectively. And from that place, we use that in that sense of power, possibility, excitement, and we create an external message from there. If you are looking for your marketing to somehow make you feel more confident or help you speak to people more effectively, there's a part of it that can do that. It can help you re-articulate your message. It can help you do all of those things, but what it won't do. I mean, I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but in my experience, what is least effective is it changing your inner monologue. This topic was inspired me because this weekend I took my daughter to see Inside Out 2. And let me tell you what a lesson in emotional intelligence this lovely little movie is. It's not a little movie, it's a big Disney Pixar production. But I love this movie on a lot of levels. But I'll first say this, as a child of Silent Generation, I'm a Gen Xer with Silent Generation parents. How we felt about something wasn't even really acknowledged or discussed or cared about. And it took us as a Gen X generation the hard work of understanding how our thoughts and feelings contributed to our everyday decision making, how, what trauma was and how to process it. And so every generation from after us is getting more and more aware. And this is a lesson for kids and middle schoolers in emotional intelligence. And what a gift it is, because the thing that I know for sure is the story that you tell yourself is the story that will come true. That is the story that will come true. And no matter, there's no message, there's no script, there's no template that will combat that inner narrative. And that inner narrative guides you. And the more you can shift your inner narrative to serve you more effectively, the better off you're going to be. Number one thing, the better off you're going to be. This is what I do. This is what I coach and train people to do. How can I have, because and I do help people with external marketing, right? That's what we start with, the internal. We start with the story. What story am I telling myself? What do I believe about myself? What do I believe in myself as a leader, as a fundraiser? How do I see myself? What gifts do I want to bring to the world? We define that and articulate that and get grounded in that. So and from there, right? That narrative then is about power and possibility and excitement. It's not about fear or rejection or loss or what if this or anxiety. It's about all these, and then from there we create the external message, and a whole different level of creativity, articulation, excitement comes from that. And that's what people are attracted to. People ask, people connect with me. Oh, your energy, your energy. This is not by accident, because I really work on the internal narrative. And I had no idea how dark it was until I started doing like the inner work and realizing how how mean I was to myself. And how little I trusted my own wisdom and guidance and intuition. So I am going to spend a couple of minutes just unpacking some lessons that from Inside Out 2. If you've seen the movie, I would love for you to shoot me an email, Maryanne@courageouscommunication.com. Tell me what you thought of it. I would love to have a dialogue about this. So if you don't know Inside Out 1 or Inside Out 2, Inside Out 1 is about a girl, and I, God, what is her name? I'll think of it in a minute. And she is and she has, and there are emotions that in her brain, and it's all about how her emotions and these core memories and her sense of self is being formed. And the emotions are joy, and joy's the lead, and joy's sort of the leader, and it's kind of like the innocence and the easy joy of childhood. Joy comes to us so easily as children, but there's sadness, fear, and disgust and anger, and they kind of rule Riley. Her name's Riley, right? Yeah, Riley's life. Okay. And they rule Riley's life, and they help guide her. Well, in Inside Out 2, what happens is she hits puberty, and it's so funny how it happens in the movie, because it's alarm bells, and then a demo team comes in her brain. Because if you've been through adolescence, I have kids in adolescence. It is like everything they were before that gets blown up, and they recreate themselves. But there's an introduction of new emotions. And I think these are really, really interesting, because how these emotions affect us as adults. The first is anxiety. And anxiety basically takes joy's place and starts to dominate Riley's life. There's envy, right? Envy, embarrassment, which is the shame, because like a teen times are very ego filled, so you're easily embarrassed. And then the fourth is what they call ennui. Ennui meaning like, and the second they introduce this character, and the character's like laying on this lounge, like looking at a phone, like, what? Like, oh, that is such a teen. Yeah. So whatever, right? The whatever of teenagedom. Ennui, I think, is really a protection, and a way to distance themselves from the hyper craziness of the anxiety and envy, who really dominate the movie. So what does this have to do with our life, and especially fundraising? The ability to ask for money, the ability to lead people, the ability to enroll other people in a vision is fundamentally driven by your own sense of self, and your aligned, authentic confidence, and your ability to lead people in a direction and have them want to follow you and want to invest in that direction. You can't fake it. It's not about a script. It's not about a template. It's not about getting the right words. It's not about a brochure. And I work on those things, and those things are great, but it's not going to change the inner narrative. So let's talk about that. So first of all, this, as I said before, the story you tell yourself is the most important story. In the movie, Riley's sense of self gets fundamentally blown to bits by the addition of her hormones and these additional emotions, and she goes off kilter, and she starts to act in direct opposition of her own best interest, and she really loses a sense of what's important to her. because she is believing the other stories that are being told. Before adolescence, she believed she was a good person, that she was a kind person, that she was good at hockey. She had a really strong sense of self, which gets completely blown to bits when puberty happens and we introduce anxiety and envy, especially. So the story that we tell ourselves, and the whole movie is a reclamation of finding out who she truly is and what she wants to bring to the world. And that is for all of us. That story that we tell ourselves is the most critical story, is the story you're telling yourself. I'm not very good at this. And I meet people all day. I do these calls all day long. Like I don't think I'm a very good, I'm not really good at, here's one I hear a lot. I'm not an extrovert, so I don't know if I can be good at fundraising. What? What? Okay, let's unpack that, because that's a story. That's a belief you have. That's a story you're telling yourself. And that story will dictate how you approach people and how you approach, you know, your work. You can say, no, I'm not, I don't really like, I don't like to, I don't like rejection, or I have a hard time, like, I'm not really good at asking people for things. That you want a higher profile for your organization, you want to step into thought leadership, but when we start working on things like that, your imposter syndrome starts raging. That's the story that you're telling yourself, is I'm not good enough for this. No, we don't deserve this. A lot of times people are telling their story, I don't like to ask for help. There's stories around money, right? So whatever story you tell yourself is the story that will be realized, right? Because you're just putting that out into the world. And so the reclamation of your true self and your true story. And if you want to learn how to do that, I can totally teach you. Let's do it, okay? Point 2, envy and anxiety are the robbers of joy. Now, every emotion is valid, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But one of the things that really showed up for me anyway is that envy and anxiety steal joy. And in the movie, joy becomes secondary. She actually gets kind of relegated away with all the other emotions, and anxiety with envy as a sidekick takes over. And one of the things that Joy says in the movie is, well, maybe when you grow up, there's less joy. And I think I started to cry when I heard that, because I think for a lot of adults, we lose connection to joy, to like true joy. I always talk about karaoke and going to karaoke. I went to karaoke Friday night. Why? Because it connects me with my joy. It connects me with the fun, carefree part of my life. I know some people are thinking, oh my God, that's the most anxiety ridden thing I can do, which is, that's you. But for me, that's what it does for me. I had my coaching program, my long-term coaching program called the Influencer Power Circle. I did a retreat for them a couple weeks back, and they were also scared I was going to take them to karaoke. And that never even occurred to me to do that. I had a bunch of other stuff planned, but they were like really nervous. And I just thought, they're like, I thought you're, so because that was anxiety inducing for them, but that is my joy. So what is your joy? My trainer, she loves horses. She has 2 horses. She goes horseback riding for a couple of hours every week. That is her joy. That fills her cup. And in Riley's world, it's hockey. She loves hockey, and that gives her a sense of self, and it gives her a sense of pride, and she's very good at it. So anxiety and envy come in, and they rob her of her joy of that. So thinking about because in the nonprofit space, there is hyper anxiety, right? And sometimes envy. I hear stories all the time. Well, we don't have puppy. This is a really big one. We don't have puppies or kittens, or we don't have dogs or puppies and babies. Nobody's going to give to us. People don't understand what we do. We're really hard to raise money for. That's the story you're telling yourself. And that's telling me 2 things. One is you don't understand your own assets. You don't understand your own value. And 2, it's like, it's the envy is guiding you. You're not going to be that organization. So the more you sit trapped into, I wish I was that, right? The less you're going to move forward. And that anxiety and that envy, that steals the joy out of who you truly are, who your organization is, what you're put in this world to do, how you're supposed to make your community better. It robs you of those gifts. I mean, and listen, I am not immune to this. I had to really work on LinkedIn because that was a trigger. It still is. I'm like, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I'm like, ugh. Or somebody gets a speaking engagement and I'm like, how did they get that speaking engagement? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I want that speaking engagement. I get keynote envy. I do. And the reason we get envy is because we think we'll never be that. I'll never be that. I'll never be that. And so, before we can even do marketing or a tagline or anything, we have to look at to understand the value, your own personal value and the value organization brings, and stand in that, instead of wishing that you were something else. Okay. The third thing is life is always full of transitions. In this movie, we watched the Riley go from childhood to adolescence, and the movie was about her transition into adolescence. But our life is full of transitions. We live life in 7-year cycles. I'm coming out of my last 7-year cycle, but we live our life in 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 21. On and on and on, and so we're always, and even within those big life cycles, we're cycling in and out of jobs, relationships, projects, all kinds of things. Transitions are a part of who we are. And to resist transition is going to make life a lot more difficult for us, because everything ends eventually, I just transitioned out of a big client, which I call completed because we worked together for 18 months. I came in to help unify the mission advancement and the communications team. They were sort of working parallel, and I helped them understand how they work together and how they're part of the same system. It takes some time to do that, but it was like, yeah, mission completed. They are a team now, and how they function is completely different. And we said, okay, I'm transitioning out of this. It is okay for things to end. The scary part is what happens in between, right? When you're at A and you want to get to B and you want to swim across that ocean as fast as possible. I'm not going to talk about too much about transition today. I'm actually going to make another podcast about that. Just understanding that transitions are a part of life, and that there are tools that we can use, all these emotions that we have in our toolbox, right? We may need different tools to help us through emotions, to help us through transitions. And in this story, it's all about how these older emotions and the newer emotions and how they come into conflict with each other, because they didn't understand their role. But at the end, they understand that they were all there together to help her through this. So you have a lot of tools in your toolbox to help you through transition. And that you may need to access different things at different times in order to make a transition. All right, the fourth thing is every emotion has a purpose. And in this movie, every emotion has a purpose. And I want to emphasize this because this is really important, because we tend to dismiss or not want to feel the icky feelings like envy, anxiety, anger, and sadness, embarrassment, especially embarrassment. The character of embarrassment is so funny too. The way that feeling is portrayed, that emotion is so funny. And anyway, that all of these emotions have a purpose. Anxiety in the movie, anxiety is actually that can really help you, because you're thinking ahead, you're thinking about what's going wrong, you're going to plan. But what happens is anxiety starts to take over because it wants to account for every single thing that could go wrong. And now it's just inventorying all the things that can go wrong and not tapping into anything that could go right. And so now your anxiety is spinning, and that becomes out of balance. And now the anxiety is taking over, and now it's dictating. So every emotion has a purpose, but when it gets out of balance or when it starts to drive the car, right? That's when, like a look like at a bus, right? So like who gets to drive the bus? All of these emotions are on the bus. But I, as a conscious leader who understands how my emotions contribute to my everyday actions and choices, how I drive the bus, right? So sometimes I can bring on confidence. Sometimes I can bring on anxiety. Because they both serve me. People say, I want to get rid of this imposter syndrome or doubt. I'm like, but that doubt serves you. That doubt is help because if you didn't have doubt, you would just like let yourself roll off a cliff. The doubt helps support the confidence that it keeps you humble, it keeps you hungry, it keeps you eager and open and attentive to people. But when the doubt consumes you, when the doubt drives the bus, that's when that's when the struggle happens. So in this movie, anxiety takes over and starts to quote unquote drive the bus, in the sense, to keep using that metaphor. And Riley has a panic attack and can't really function because she's full of anxiety. And then all of these childhood memories that she may have like forgotten about or weren't really important come back up, like the times that she did something wrong or was embarrassed or said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing or something like that. They all start to come up because now she's pulling in a new narrative, and the new narrative is that she's not a good person, that she can't, she doesn't know how to play hockey, those kinds of things. So this whole new narrative emerges based on that, and now your brain goes and starts finding evidence, to make that story true. So every emotion has a role, right? In this movie, there was a lot of other emotions that I saw a little TikTok. They're talking about all these emotions that they thought about bringing in and didn't. They're just keeping it to, I think, these 9. But it's a lot of characters. I can see why they would want to limit it. But really, every emotion every part of you is valid. If you look at who I put on the bus, like I am a rebel. I love my rebel side. And for a while, I was sort of subverting my rebel side because I have to be the coach and the consultant. And one of my coaches, Dr. Aaron, who I mentioned a lot, said, Maryanne, you're living in 2 halves of your body. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, that lower half of that lower chakra of like the energy, the creativity, the power, like the sexuality, like, that's, you're cutting that off, but that's why people are attracted to you, because of the creativity, because of the edginess, because of all that. And once you integrate those 2 parts of you, that's when you'll truly be powerful. So in this sense, in the movie, and I'm going into my last point as I say this, is that every emotion has a place, and our ability to value every single emotion or every single part of us, even the parts that we don't like very much, ultimately makes us the most powerful, the most aligned, and the most, I want to say, productive in this sense, because we honor all parts of ourselves. We honor the self, the sad self. We honor the anger, because anger is a revolution. Enough of this. Enough, like, anger has a purpose. Sadness has a purpose. For so long in my life, I said, oh, I shouldn't be sad. I shouldn't be angry. Something wrong. No, there's nothing wrong. They're there to guide you and to support you. Every emotion is information if you're willing to look at it. It's all really good information. Instead of saying, oh, I can't believe I did that, I'm so horrible. Okay, isn't that interesting? My friend just told me this the other day. He goes, I felt really guilty because I realized I was in my workshop, and he has like a woodworking woodshop and a workshop, and instead of being, kind of productive or working on projects, I was just sort of avoiding things, and I felt really bad. And I'm like, or isn't this interesting? I'm here and I'm avoiding things. That's really good information. Okay, one of the emotions or the feelings was avoidance. He's hiding. All right. What could I be hiding from? Everything is a mirror if you're willing to look at it. Everything that you do, every reaction, every thought, that's a mirror, and it's telling you something. The more that you can look into the mirror, the more that you can learn about who you are. And that's what I love about this movie. That's what I love about the work I do, because that is the pain that people that people don't really realize is that you want a brochure or a script or a template or a formula or a magic wand or something so that you can feel confident all the time. When the way we grow in our confidence is to love and accept our doubt. The way we grow in our confidence is to love and accept the things about us that we don't really like, or the things that we're afraid people will not accept if we share them. That's how we become more confident. We do the dang work. And if this movie isn't a case for it, I don't know what is. And I'm going to tell you, in my life, the more I really claimed that space and focused on, listen, if you want to raise more money, if you want to communicate more effectively, if you want to, move your mission and change the world, it starts with you. It starts with you, and not in a selfish way, in a way of preparing you to navigate the things you're going to have to navigate, other people's uncomfortable feelings, change, difficult situations, asking for money, uncertainty, doubt, a weird economy, all of those things. None of those things are going away, right? When we hit the pandemic, we realized everything we ever wanted, which was certainty and control, was never really true. It was never really true, right? And so there's no such thing as certainty and control. We just have trust and faith and doing the work and staying in motion, serving people every day to the highest and best of our ability. That's what we do. All right, so I'm just gonna recap. It's about the story you tell yourself is the most important story. And I want to say, let me hold that for just a second. Envy and anxiety will steal your joy if you let them. It's okay to have anxiety. It's okay to have envy. And also, it's a balance with the joy. Just make sure they're not driving the bus. Life is full of transitions, and you can adapt. And just accepting that life is full of transitions and there's beginnings and endings, and that's the natural order of everything cycles. And it's okay. All emotions have a role, and they all are working. They're all tools in your toolbox that serve a purpose. And, even the uncomfortable ones like embarrassment and sadness and anger. The last thing I want to say is the story you tell yourself is the most important story, and it's the most important to be kind to yourself, have love and grace to yourself. And if by listening to this, you're thinking, wow, I didn't realize I thought a lot of negative thoughts. No, you can maybe do a rubber band or something, right? And you have a negative thought and you think, okay, what's change? What's a different story I can tell? The more kind and graceful and loving you are to yourself, the more kind, graceful, loving, accepting you will be to other people. If you're like me, I give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I give everyone so much grace. And I just like, oh, but not me, right? No, I don't give that to me. But I can give myself grace. I say it to you. I've said it. I'm not perfect, but I am awesome, because I'm not perfect. People aren't perfect. We're messy. We're fallible. We're difficult. And the more that you can understand how your thoughts and feelings contribute to your everyday decision making, and you can help guide other people into more self-awareness and more conscious and influential leadership of themselves. That's it. That's it for me in this episode of The Influential Nonprofit. See this movie. And if you're ready to up-level your leadership, if you're ready to tell yourself a better story, to lead with more confidence, more clarity, more joy, more ease, get more done, and, not let anxiety drive the bus anymore, I'm here for you. I can help you do that. My booking link is in the show notes. You can feel free to book a time with me and let's talk about it. And that's it. We'll see you next time on The Influential Nonprofit.